Messenger joins us, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, every Tuesday and Thursday. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, McGraw. How you doing?
Good. I read with quite interest your column the other day about when you were going to visit fifth graders, and the one fifth grader asked you, what'd you ask you, the hardest thing to write or the least favorite thing you wanted to write?
What's my least favorite topic to write about these days?
Yeah. And you
thought question.
And you thought about it and you said politics.
Yeah, which as soon as I said it, it surprised me, but it was what was top of my mind, and it's because of everything that's going on in politics today. It's the Trumpian phenomenon of treating the press as the enemy of the people. It's the idea that just by mentioning the president, you turn off half of your audience, and half of that audience is angry. The other side is angry as well. There's just the column got into this idea that James Comey wrote about in an op-ed in the Washington Post, in which he said policy differences don't matter anymore. Truth doesn't matter anymore, and so it makes it really hard to write about deep dives on issues that really matter, because in this political atmosphere, half the people, 30% of the people, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but a group of the people that I normally write for, they write off whatever you have to say, because they've decided they're for Trump, and whatever he says, regardless of the truth of it, is what they're going to follow. And I'm just an enemy of the people who writes for the mainstream media, so why the heck should they listen to me? And it's frustrating, because politics is important, and it determines a lot that affects our daily lives. And I'm just becoming, maybe I'm a crabby old man, get off my lawn, but I've become increasingly frustrated with the nature of our inability to understand that political differences don't mean that we have to hate our opponent, and political differences can still be, the sides have historically come along and compromise when it comes to important policy. And right now, whether it's the Wildwood City Council that I wrote about a week or so ago, or Congress, compromise is not something that appears to be on the agenda of many of our people in politics these days.
Yeah, two things, because while I'll say this, and that is, it's about the facts. I don't care if you disagree with me. I don't care if we, argue about the sky is blue or the sky, whatever. But we have to agree with the certain facts. And if you just disregard the facts, there's no way to have a conversation with anybody.
Right, and here's a good example. This one is part of our national discussion right now. It is a certifiable, undeniable fact that Josh Hawley, the Attorney General who's running for U.S. Senate, and not most, but many Republicans, because lots of Republican governors have the opposite view, but many Republicans nationally have signed on to and support a lawsuit to get rid of the remaining parts of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And part of that lawsuit gets rid of the protections that Obamacare offered for people with pre-existing conditions. That's just a fact. It's in the lawsuit. It's word for word. The same folks that signed on to that lawsuit have supported multiple votes. I think 30 or 40, maybe more votes in the House of Representatives to overturn Obamacare. So when Josh Hawley runs an ad that says, "I support pre-existing conditions," it's just the exact opposite of what he's done in action. And to have that discussion in the public atmosphere is next to impossible these days, because it has become, when you have a president who has been documented to lie over and over and over again, and that becomes the new standard, it makes it impossible to have a discussion on facts.
The other thing I'll say is I know Trump supporters think they're the only ones being picked on. But there's a certain portion of Trump supporters, there's a certain portion of Democrats, liberals, who are very similar in their antagonism, in their we don't want to believe the truth, we don't want to pay attention to the other side, right? They sort of discount. And so, no, I'm not the terrible one, you're the terrible one. And until each side truly understands the point of view of the other person, we're never going to get through this.
You know, when I used to cover the Missouri Senate, it seems like a century ago, but, 8, 9, 10 years ago, I remember a debate one time in which Jason Crowell and Kurt Schaefer were going at each other, two conservative Republican lawmakers. And they were getting intense. And Crowell was having the better of Schaefer, and Schaefer started getting a little personal in his criticism of Crowell. And Senator Crowell stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute. You want to argue my facts? You want to argue my position? Let's argue over that." And again, these were two Republicans going at each other, but don't question my motives. And that's what our political debate has become today. Everything is about motive because facts are no longer on the table. I mean, that becomes very difficult to have an actual political conversation about what's really going on. You can't discuss the immigrant caravan in a factual context because you're disagreeing with what the president is saying, and therefore you're just an enemy of the people who's going against the president. Instead of actually discussing what the facts are related to the immigrant caravan or pre-existing conditions or the fact that the Affordable Care Act, when it's polls very, very positively, but then when you ask the exact same question and call it Obamacare, it polls negatively. That's a fact. That's the reality of our political discussion today, and it makes it very difficult for well-meaning people, most people who are more like my wife, who are not Democrats or Republicans or even involved in a daily basis in political discussion, but every 4 years, show up at the polling place and become involved in the very important political system that we have. It becomes impossible to have these reasoned discussions of policy, and that's frustrating.
Well, I said yesterday, we'll leave it with this. I said yesterday, if only these elected officials could actually had the power to pass a law to fix our immigration system, to sort of compromise and come up with some type of plan to solve some of these problems. If they only had the power to write laws like that, boy, it would be a much better place.
They've got the power. They don't have the will.
Yeah, there you go. Tony, have a good day. Thanks.
Good to talk to you.